Hello everyone and welcome to the Sci Fi Bookery. This is my reading nook here, and today I would like to talk to you about Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This book came highly recommended to me. It was even featured on First Chapter Friday, our first ever First Chapter. Make yourself comfortable. Our first ever First Chapter Friday was this book here, Dark Matter. So I had to read it. I read the whole thing. It's very fast paced. I do have some reservations, and we'll get into that. So come with me as we explore Dark Matter by Blake Crouch.
What does it mean to be human?
Let's talk about the basic story here. So Jason Destin is this, I hate the name, by the way, Jason Destin. You can literally come up with any name. You can make up any name you want, and you could, will you make up your mind? You're disrupting production. So you can make up any name you want, and he chooses a name that rhymes. And I'm like, look, I love Shel Silverstein, but I don't want to read Shel Silverstein in a sci-fi book. So Jason Destin is this family man who hates his family, which I found to be both infuriating and kind of funny at some time.
What?
So Jason was a scientist, and he was working on this thing. We'll talk about it in a little bit. He despises his family for being there because he couldn't be a scientist anymore, or at least he couldn't research the way he wanted to. So he just lives this life where he's a physics professor at the local college in Chicago. His wife could have been a famous artist, but she got pregnant and had their son, and they made this family. And so she despises everyone in the family because she didn't become this famous artist. They are combined. They make the worst parents that I've ever read. They are absolutely horrible, selfish, self-serving individuals. Their son, who's 15, Charlie, he's completely neglected. In the opening scene, he's in the living room, they're in the kitchen talking about how much better their life would be without him. I really don't know if Blake Crouch purposely wrote these characters to be hated, but I've never hated a main character more than I hated Jason Destin, and it wasn't just because of the stupid name. He is just a self-righteous, self-serving, selfish individual who doesn't care about anybody. But we'll get into that. The opening scene, they're berating their son in front of him without actually talking directly to him, just kind of so that he could hear it. And he's just all depressed in the other room, I would imagine. So then Jason mentions that his friend won this prestigious award and he's partying down at the local bar down the street. So his wife Daniela says, oh, go ahead, go down there. So then he decides to do that, and his life changes completely from there on out. He gets kidnapped and magically whisked away to this alternate reality where he is a rich and famous scientist, a la It's a Wonderful Life if George Bailey was a theoretical physicist. That's basically what this is.
Merry Christmas!
So the adventure begins when Jason realizes that he made the wrong decision. He doesn't really want to be a famous scientist. He wants to be with his family that he hates. So this is all the thing about him being selfish and stuff, is running into all these people and he's just using them for whatever he can to get where he needs to be. And I think that Crouch was trying to write him as an endearing character who would do anything to get back to his family. But really the only reason he wanted to get back to his wife was so that he could have sex with her. And he didn't really care about getting back to his son at all. First of all, like the basic plot of it is interesting, but it's very contrived, and it's done in a way that I think Blake Crouch thinks he's really clever. After reading this, I watched an interview with him, and he was talking about how he was interested in quantum physics, so he thought he'd write a book about it. So he didn't really know anything about quantum physics. He was interested in it, and he did the research while he was writing the book, which super common with authors. I'm not saying that's wrong, But the thing is, I think that he thought that after his research, he was like a master of quantum physics, because the stuff he talks about in this, although it is all completely theoretical, is like off the walls bonkers. The science in this, like, there's things that he just expects the reader to say, okay, that's fine, and just assume, like, okay, that's fine. And he doesn't explain any of it. Like, in order to use this black box, you need to inject yourself or drink this drug, which is never explained. You can almost just assume that Jason is just on this bad drug trip through the entire book, and like he just happens to, you know, he goes to rehab and finds his family again or something like that. But like the whole thing could be a bad drug trip, because that part is never explained. The part that's over explained is like literally over explained, like there's so much dialogue on it, is the actual quantum physics, the theoretical part of it, where you go into the box and you inject the drug and whatever, and it takes you to an alternate reality. And it's all based on this mini worlds theory. That's a theory in theoretical physics, where you make a decision and you go this way, and whatever the opposite of that decision is goes this way and forms an alternate reality. And every single decision you make continues to splinter off into all of these alternate realities. So there's billions of versions of you out there in these alternate realities. Sometimes they call them peripheral realities, because theoretical physicists, for as insane as they are, they think that these are so close. There's like just a membrane in front of you. Like right now, you could reach through and grab yourself sitting on the other couch over there, because I chose to sit on this couch. My other alternate reality chose to sit on that couch. So there is someone sitting on the couch right now who's me in an alternate reality. It's not mind-blowing type of stuff here, but Blake Crouch presents it as if it's this like, whoa. And people recommended this book to me. Like all of them were like, oh, it's gonna blow your mind. Like it's crazy. And I'm like, this is just super basic theoretical science. Like it's not like, I'm not even into science-y science, you know, like I'm not super genius science guy. Like I knew about this mini worlds concept from reading other science fiction books, because that's really the only place you ever see it, because theoretical physics is not a real thing. So you see it more so played out in science fiction. So I knew about this concept, and I'm pretty sure it's a very common thing, but I don't know. He presents it as if it's this like mind-blowing thing that no one's ever said before. Whereas there's countless books and movies and everything about this mini worlds theory. Let's get to the characters here. So there's Jason Dressen. Oh, the worst name ever. His wife Daniela, his son Charlie, and then there's a few other characters. His friend. There's some people that work at his lab when he's a famous scientist. There's a couple other people that he runs into, like tertiary characters, hotel clerks and stuff like that. Those are like the main characters right there, are those like 5 people that are recurring in the book. And they're all extremely flat. Even the main character. So I've heard other people say that these characters are flat, but they also said, well, Jason is well developed. But it's only because it's written in first person. If it wasn't written in first person, Jason would be just as flat as the rest of them. And I think that he only seems like a very complex character in comparison to how little we know about the other characters. Like the characters are just there. Like there's this one character who plays a massive role in the book. Like I would say that she is the character that changes the entire book and plays probably the most crucial role in the book itself. And she just disappears. And we never hear about her again, never mentioned again, just isn't there. That'd be like in Star Wars if they never mentioned Darth Vader or Yoda or something like that, like ever again throughout the series after they died. Like, and she didn't die, but she just like vanishes. And it doesn't make any sense, because and it didn't matter because her character was so flat. There were like a couple things where she talked about things with him from like her past and stuff, and you're like, I don't even care, because I don't care about you as a person. I don't care about you as a character. I mentioned that reading vintage sci-fi, it's kind of got me hooked on these complex, well-developed characters. So when I read modern sci-fi and that's not there, it's disappointing to me. So maybe that's just me being more disappointed that characters aren't developed better in books. Because like, what's the point of writing a book about a character? I mean, books are character studies. That's what they are. So I didn't understand that, and I didn't like it. Before I talk about what was the weirdest thing in the book, I want to talk about some of the pluses. It's very fast paced, which is great for this kind of story because it's more of an adventure story than it is science fiction. It's got the science elements in it, but it's more like an adventure story. And it's written in an interesting way, in a way that I've never read a book before, where statements are broken up on separate lines. It's very few paragraphs throughout the entire book. It's mostly these brief, quick statements, and it keeps the book moving. So it's very fast paced. It was a very quick read, and I like that about it. So there's also, it reads so fast because a lot of it is dialogue. So once he gets out of his head and he's around other people and he's talking, it makes it even more fast paced than just because it's dialogue. There were some concepts in the book that were positive. So there's this idea when he's dealing with multiple realities. There's this idea of something being familiar but not the same, and I think that's something that a lot of people, at least people who grow older, they see that and they understand that concept of something being similar but not the same. You know, maybe it's your house but you painted it, or a new car that's the same model but it's newer, or something like that, where it's like similar but not the same. And you run into that a lot with the mini worlds concept, or the mini worlds theory even, where that's sort of like the trend throughout, and that's the trend throughout this book as well, which I liked that about it, that he touched on that. There were some humanizing aspects to the story. He just didn't apply them to the humans, which is a little strange. The core of this story, it's like a love story, or at least it's attempting to be a love story, but you can see right through it that it's more just Jason being selfish. It's a hate story. How about that? It's more of that than, like, I think he tried to make it a rom-com with, like, they're like have this like witty banter, but it's actually just like, it sounds like two people talking on Twitter or something like that. Like, it's just really lame, and it doesn't land, and I don't know anybody like these people, and they are just horrible people. Like, that's why I said Twitter. Like, it sounds like it's like they live in this like Twitter world where they're like, you know, they have like their own little language that they like raccoons are trash pandas or something stupid like that, and they think it's funny. And it's like, it's not funny. It's just, it's like a meme. Like, the whole book is like a meme. I'm sorry, this is supposed to be the prose of the book. And I'm going off again. In all of my reviews, in every book I read, I'm looking for one question, which is, what does it mean to be human? Because I think every good science fiction book needs to answer that question. What does it mean to be human? To me, that question was answered, but in a very unsatisfying way. I'll leave it at that because you can read it if you want. I want to recommend it. Oh, there's more. So now to probably the weirdest things, and the weirdest thing in the book, if you have kids in the room, or if they're listening, or if you are a kid, turn it off. Why are you watching this? Throughout the book, it's just drunken sex constantly. It's swearing and heavy drinking and drugs, and it's just like they talk about it as if they're like teenagers that just went to their first keg party. You know, or like those like Pinterest that are like, well, I'm only having one glass of wine, and it's like this giant glass like that. It's just stupid, memey kind of like Twitter-esque. They drink an entire bottle of wine at family night at the beginning of the movie, and then open another one, and he's talking about how, you know, like his son is right in the other room doing his homework or something, and he's talking about how sexy his wife looks when she's drunk. And then she says something, and he's like, why, are you getting turned on? And I'm like, this is disgusting to read this stuff with two like parents with like the kid in the other room. But they're just like, Jason and Danielle are just drunk and horny through the entire book. Like, at one point, this woman who's one of the crucial characters in it, he almost sleeps with her. And then like there's this other scene where he's like him and Danielle are having sex like multiple times throughout the book, just drunk, like completely inebriated, having sex. He's like describing it as this like, it's almost like a euphoric moment where you're just like hammered. And at one point they're like in mortal danger, and the thing they decide to do is go out to dinner at a restaurant and get drunk. and then they're like dancing at like this honky tonk or something, and their son is like, "You guys are so hammered," and they're like, "Yeah, bro," and then they go back to the place where they're staying, and like their son is sleeping in the living room, and they're just banging in the bedroom, and I'm like, it's just gross. Like, it's gross. Like, stop doing that. Like, and the way that they talk to each other, like she's like, he's like, "Oh, you like the way that I do," and I'm like, who talks like that's disgusting. Like, they don't sound like a real married couple. And I was surprised to find out that Blake Crouch is married with kids, because I understand he's writing characters. Okay, so don't go freaking out in the comments. I understand that these are book characters, but they don't sound like a real married couple. The way they talk to each other, the way they act with each other, they don't sound like real married couple. They sound like what someone on Twitter thinks a real married couple would be like. They don't have a connection in any way. And every time that Jason talks about his connection to Daniela, it's always about how hot she is or how she turns him on or something like that. It has nothing to do with, there's like no deeper connection between these two. And it's just stupid. It's really stupid. And the story is, I think it's supposed to be about them rekindling their love and relationship and stuff. And it's not. It's absolutely not about that. It's about two selfish people getting exactly what they want. And I hated that. And then they talk about the drinking and smoking weed and stuff like they're teenagers. Like, it's cool, man. Oh, just like, it's, shut up. Just shut up. And more so, it's not just the selfishness of the two of them, but it's this, they're just irresponsible parents. They don't really care. Neither one of them cares about this kid. So this is a kid that they chose to bring into this world, and neither one of them cares about him. They absolutely resent him for making them a family and for them not achieving their original goals in life because of him. And they resent him, so they're just bad parents because of that. So it's not only the constant drunkenness and the very blatant sex throughout their home, but then they don't even consider him in the events that come when they're like running for their life. Like, they just are horrible, horrible parents. So to conclude, I don't know how long this video got, but I've been talking for a while. I didn't like the book. I thought it was entertaining and it was just okay, but the writing is pretty poor. The character development is garbage. It sounds like it was written by a horny teenager. The whole thing. I'm just gonna say it. Blake Crouch, you look older, but I think you might be a horny teenager. I'm not sure, because that's how it sounds. But all the twists were really predictable. The science was kind of lame, and honestly, the most exciting part was towards the end. It was like the last 30 to 50 pages was really exciting and fast-paced and interesting, and it was like, it was all that build up to this and then the ending itself is so incredibly boring. The entire book is written like a TV show, which makes sense because Blake Crouch got optioned with the Wayward Pines. So this was like the follow-up after that. So I think he was actually trying to get this book optioned. I don't think he was trying to write a good book. I think he was trying to write a TV series. And it really comes off as that. It sounds like you're watching a TV series. Very little description. It's fast-paced with a lot of dialogue. So it sounds like you're watching a TV series, which in that case, the super boring ending makes a little bit more sense, because it's kind of like that feel good, ending to a TV series after it's been on the air for 4 years. But honestly, I would cancel this series if it ever came to me. So that is my very in-depth and very honest review of this atrocity, Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I would not recommend it. Please don't read this. Don't even check it out of the library like I did. That was a mistake. If you're looking for pure entertainment, read it. If you're looking for a book that actually changes your worldview and makes you look at yourself introspectively, definitely not the book. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is the Sci Fi Bookery. I'm Josh. This is a terrible book. We'll see you next time.